Welcome to another best wildcard and free hit team video for Game Week 16, the last game week we have before the World Cup, and then we'll have a long break where there'll still be FPL videos, but there will also be World Cup fantasy videos, and also be sure to check out the UCL Fantasy Matchday 7 draft that I've uploaded recently. Let's try to get this video to over 300 likes, and let's also push on towards 20,000 subscribers, starting with 17k. Thank you very much for all your support, and let's get straight into this video. This may seem like an odd choice of goalkeeper, but I would go for Alisson to cover Liverpool's defence with a favourable fixture at home to Southampton, who just sacked Ralph Hasenhüttl. And you have a few other choices like Ramsdale away to Wolves. You've also got Pickford away to Bournemouth, and also Gaeta away to Nottingham Forest. Dean Henderson's also not too shabby. Robert Sanchez, you could say. But I would go for Alisson if you can afford it. And I think this would be a pretty nice way of covering Liverpool's defence because, spoiler alert, I'm not going to go for Trent Alexander-Arnold because despite the fact there's a really good choice, I want to spend that money in other areas and in other premium options. Then I've gone for Danny Ward, who has been fantastic over the last 6 game weeks, probably the best goalkeeper in the game, and he's only 4 million. Leicester have just been a completely different side now over the last month or so compared to the beginning of the season, where they were looking like they were going to be one of the worst Premier League sides of all time. So Alisson will be my goalkeeper. Ederson's also not a bad shout at home to Brentford, probably a really good chance of a clean sheet, and honestly you could also go for him, to be fair. Alisson and Ederson for me have the best chances of a clean sheet this week. You could argue City are even better in this regard, but I would go for Alisson and I would not double up on any defence this week. I was one of those that were burned by the Cancelo captaincy, and I'll talk more about that in the team selection video, but I would still go for him. A really good chance of a clean sheet at home to Brentford, and if you don't go for a triple up in City, you could feasibly go for Ederson in goal or go for another defender and double up on City's defence. But like I said earlier, my preference is to not double up on any defence this week, but you may feel differently about that. Kieran Trippier is the best defender in the game, period. He's at home to Chelsea, which seems tough on paper, but Newcastle are the favourites, and I would favour Newcastle to win that game, and Trippier has not actually blanked in any game this season at St James's Park, including a game against Man City where they drew 3-3, but Trippier scored a free kick. So I would definitely go for Trippier and Cancelo, and I would start both of them. And then we've got Ben White away to Wolves. I would cover Arsenal defensively. I'm not 100% sure in a clean sheet here, despite Arsenal's great form, and Wolves could cause problems. Of course, Lopetegui will take charge after this game, so maybe that will be a bit of a blow to Wolves, but either way, the spirits should be up, and I think Wolves could cause plenty of problems to Arsenal. And Saliba is probably the best defender to go for from Arsenal, but Ben White is cheaper, he's more accessible, and he also has some good assist threat. Anderson is also in here, but you may not be able to afford him and the rest of this squad that we're going to talk about, so you could consider Nico Williams or just someone that's cheap enough for you to be able to afford this squad. But Anderson has a good chance of a clean sheet on paper, away to Nottingham Forest, and if not, he could be first on your bench anyway, but he provides really good cover that you may need. And then Patterson away to Bournemouth. He is my favourite Everton defensive coverage, and he could be someone I'm looking at in the Game Week 17 unlimited transfer squad. More on that in the next few weeks. There could be a squad that will provide very, very shortly after Game Week 16 ends, and then you can let me know your thoughts on that as well. But this would be my wildcard squad and free hit squad for Game Week 16 in terms of the defensive line, and it looks pretty solid overall. It has been a while, but I'm going to go for 5 midfielders in this best wildcard and free hit team video for Game Week 16. And in the next portion of this video, I will show you the starting 11 using FPL.team. Almiron's certainly going to be in there. He's the informed Premier League player, and I would be surprised if he blanks. That's how confident I am of returns for him. I think he could cause some serious damage to Chelsea, and Newcastle are the much better team at this moment in time. Martinelli is purely there because of his price and his value, and it is a bit tricky because you could argue that Rashford's the better option away to Fulham, but I would favour Martinelli playing in the better team, and also Arsenal are full of confidence right now, and I don't expect Arsenal to score 3 or 4 against Wolves, but I think Martinelli is a key component of their attack, and he has a good chance of getting that return and ticking along nicely. And then Salah, and he showed his class against Tottenham, a 15-pointer, 2 well-taken finishes. He could have got a hat-trick, and he's also in contention for the captaincy alongside a few other key candidates. And I think the big omission here is Kevin De Bruyne, but there is good reason for that, and I'll talk about that very soon. Trossard is at home to Aston Villa, who look rejuvenated under Unai Emery, and that's a really tough game to call, but even if Brighton drop points, I think Trossard has the best chance of any Brighton player to get some return, so I would go for him. And the last player is Zaha, who is an FPL troll, or at least he's perceived to be, and he got that big return against West Ham, and now he's facing Forest. It would not surprise me if he did blank, but when I look at his price and below, he would be my favourite option to go for, even over Rashford, and I would take the the plunge with him, and playing down the middle, he has a much better chance of hogging all the big chances and also being a key component to Palace's attack and all their goals, really. So that's why I am going to go for him. But if it was a few weeks ago, I don't think Zaha would be anywhere near this team, even with that Nottingham Forest fixture. No De Bruyne, no problem. We've gone for two premium attackers here in Harry Kane and Erling Haaland. I do recognise that De Bruyne is one of the very best captaincy options at home to Brentford, but I would rather go for premiums from other teams, such as Salah at home to Southampton, and also Harry Kane at home to Leeds. But I will say this, Leeds have been very impressive recently, and they have caused some big problems whenever they faced a so-called big team. They beat Liverpool at Anfield, they should have beaten Arsenal, and they also smashed Chelsea under Thomas Tuchel. So I think Harry Kane, he's not the absolute very best captaincy option in my opinion, but he is in the top 3 or 4, and I think he is the best kind of premium besides Haaland long term, because he's only blanked 3 times this season. His consistency is just going under the radar because of what Haaland has been doing. Of course, he's going to be in here. I'm not going to discuss him. He's probably going to be the captain, unfortunately. And Greenwood is there. He scored obviously in the last game, but he's a 4.2 million forward. He's an enabler. He would probably be 2nd or 3rd on your bench, most likely 3rd, but we'll talk about that now in the FPL.team section using that website, and you'll see the starting 11. In goal, I would go for Alisson, of course, and Ward would be on the bench. The defensive line would be Trippier, Cancelo and Ben White. I think that's a good chance of 1 or 2 clean sheets between them, and also potentially attacking returns, especially when you're looking at Trippier and Cancelo, Trossard, Almiron, Martinelli, Zaha and Salah as the midfield, with Haaland and Harry Kane up front, and Anderson and Patterson also make for some really good cover on the bench. But as you can see here, in my case, I would not be able to afford this team, so you could easily make a few adjustments, such as Alisson down to someone like Pickford, for example, and also Anderson down to Nico Williams. So this team is still easily affordable. I know some of you might have even less money than I do, for example, and in that case, you might have to make further adjustments. But it will be fairly straightforward to cover most of the key teams and their assets and still build a really good team that's solid enough for Game Week 16, which is all that matters at this point. And then in Game Week 17, of course, we do get unlimited transfers and prices could be locked at that stage. So we don't have to worry too much about being completely active in FPL. So that's kind of my take on it. In terms of the captaincy, I would probably rank it as Haaland 1st, Salah 2nd, Kane 3rd, and De Bruyne 4th, but it's still quite close, I'd say. And despite how good Newcastle are, I don't think I'd captain one of their players, but they are still actually worth considering at home to Chelsea. But really, I'm looking at those City assets, Liverpool assets like Salah, and also Harry Kane. And apart from that, I probably wouldn't captain anyone else, but that's just my personal opinion, and you may disagree, of course. Let me know your thoughts on this wildcard and free hit team, and what would you change? I think some of you might point towards the goalkeeper, for example, and maybe point towards someone like Maddison in the midfield. That's certainly, completely fine, and I think you might have a valid point. And the same goes for De Bruyne, who I'd be a bit uneasy about not having, but you should be fine, and you cover him in other ways, and maybe triple City could be the play here. So once again, feel free to give constructive criticism, and if you enjoyed this video or found it useful, you know what to do. Smash the like button and subscribe for new. Let's get this video to over 300 likes, and let's also push on towards 17,000 subscribers. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM, and also become a patron or a channel member. The links are in the description below. The same goes for the Discord server and the FPL League, and be sure to join the World Cup Fantasy League, and all the links are in my channel and also on my Twitter, and you'll see the videos coming up. It will be in the description for that as well. I wish you all the best of luck for Game Week 16 and the rest of the season, and I'll see you next time.